Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, the 23rd of February, and it's our second English lesson of the week. So today, for our warm-up, we are going to be looking at sentence structure and relative clauses. Now, you should be very good at these by now. If not, we can do a little reminder in a moment. But before we do, can you spot where the relative clauses are in these sentences? Okay, the first one. My cousin lives in Canada, which is a long way to go and visit. Which part of that sentence is the relative clause? Number two, these three girls who have worked very hard on their maths project can have a prize each. Okay, can you spot where they are? So well done if you got them. It is this one and this one. This one is embedded. So it's in the middle of your sentence. And you've got a comma either side. The top one is just at the end. Now remember, for a relative clause, you need to have one of these pronouns, who, that, where, which. And that needs to be at the front of your relative clause, okay? So, can we spot them in the next couple of sentences? The film, which had me on the edge of my seat, was tremendously exciting. Which part is the relative clause? Look for the spelling in the dictionary, which is the Oxford English Dictionary. There aren't any chips, which means I have to have potatoes instead. Oh dear. So which parts of these sentences are the relative clauses? Write these sentences down and underline the part that is the relative clause, please. Off you go. Okay, hopefully you got down, choose a different colour. You got down this embedded relative clause here, which had me on the edge of my seat. You can take that sentence out. You can take that clause out, sorry, and your sentence would still make sense. The film was tremendously exciting. It would still work, wouldn't it? And then we've got one at the end here, which is an Oxford English Dictionary, and another one at the end here, which means I have to have potatoes instead. Okay, good. Well done if you got those. Now your task here, the first bit at the top, can you add a relative clause in? Now I've given you what the relative pronouns are. You've got your commas there already. So can you add in a bit of information? So it needs to be about the subject of your sentence. So James, comma, I don't know, who is 12 years old, doesn't like chocolate. So what could you add in to these sentences to make them relative clauses? So for example, we have who is 12 years old, and then you've already got your commas there, one there and one there, doesn't like chocolate. You could add anything in there, but it needs to be related to the person you're talking about. And the second one, Amina worked for hours on her project, which was, I don't know, really difficult, or about animals, who knows, okay? So can you fill in those two with different alternatives to mine, please? Use your own imagination. What could you add in? Okay, our second task, correct or incorrect? Have I punctuated these sentences correctly and used the relative clauses correctly? So I'm going to read through them and you're just going to write down correct or incorrect for each of these. The children who live by the woods were going to swim in the stream. Second one, my mum, Kerry, made my birthday cake. I had to run to get to school because I was late. And then they marvelled at the sky, which looked unusually clear. Which of these are correct? Which are incorrect? And can you tell me why? Or are they something different altogether? So the first one, the children who live by the woods doesn't have our comma in, does it? We need to have an extra comma before the who there, okay? So well done if you got that. You'd need to take that bit out, and the children were going to swim in the stream would make sense on its own, wouldn't it? Now the second one, is that correct or incorrect? That is incorrect. It's not actually got a relative clause. It's just got a bit of extra information about the person's mum. So that is not a relative clause. And the third one, I put this one in to throw you off. Also incorrect. Not a relative clause, it's just a subordinate clause, isn't it? It hasn't got one of these relative pronouns. And the last one is correct, which looked unusually clear. That is perfectly fine. Well done if you got those. And do not worry if you didn't, it's all about practice. Okay, so we are thinking about one of my favourite things to do today, setting description. And there are so many incredible and thought-provoking images in the arrival. Some awe-inspiring, some mundane. That factory scene looked quite, you know, boring. He's going off the line with all these objects. That his room is quite boring. And some are a bit scary when we've got those animals taking over, it looks like. We've got them fleeing from different parts of the world for different reasons. Some of them are just amazing. They almost look quite sci-fi. And today we're going to look at them in a bit more detail and write our own setting descriptions. And the things we're going to include, as always, you've seen them before, expanded noun phrases, links between sentences, and figurative language. So with our figurative language, we're talking similes, we're talking metaphors, and we are talking personification. So you are giving something human qualities. Often, a lot of the time, if you're doing a metaphor, you're also personifying something. So the two almost go hand in hand. So remember, metaphor, you're comparing, saying something is something else. Okay. So the moon was an eye staring over the people below. If you were going to make that a simile, you'd say the moon was like an eye. Okay, very subtle difference there. So let's have a look at some of these images. Now, I've got 2 pages of images, so we're going to do this twice, and then you can decide which one you're going to write up. Okay, so make sure you got your can I's down. Can I write a setting description? And these 2 are of the city, the new city. It looks a lot more welcoming than the old place he came from, doesn't it? There's, you know, plates and pots that are actually buildings. We've got these huge statues, lots of cone shapes, cylinder shapes, everything's kind of soft edges. So the first thing you need to do is list as many nouns as you can. What can you actually see? Now, I originally wrote the moon for this one down here, but actually it almost looks as if it might be a very circular hot air balloon, because it looks like something's dangling below. Who knows? Let your imagination run wild. So the first thing you need to do is just jot down on your page as many nouns that you can see, as many things. And I've written some down to start you off. Birds, buildings, chimneys, smoke, statue, moon, people, roads. I haven't put on there, but you could put on there. Lots of things. So give yourself 2 minutes. Off you go. Okay, well done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add to these objects that we've already got. And we are going to add some adjectives to make some expanded noun phrases. And if you want to write in any metaphors, personifications, similes, this is also a good place to do that too. So I've just chosen a couple of my words and I've expanded them a bit to make them a bit more descriptive. So I've created an ENP here for the birds. What bright white birds, delicately glide. I don't know where they're gliding to. I could have had them gliding across and I could describe the sky. I've just noted that one down. Plumes of thick smoke snake through the air. So we've got a metaphor there and personification, reaching towards the sky. Buildings like intricately decorated pots and plates adorn the city. Adorn's another word for decorate. So pause the video now. Do a similar thing for your words, okay? So try and use different ones to mine. How can you add some adjectives? It might just be you add in a colour to describe it. It might be you're just going to do some similes. It's up to you. Give yourself 5 minutes. Off you go. Okay, well done. Hope you got some good things down there. So then I thought we could have a look at the more sort of sinister setting description at the beginning of the old place he used to live in, almost like things are taking over, didn't it? And that looks like it's the danger. They're almost like dragon tails or smoke leaning through. And then in the new place, I thought this was quite a good scene when they've arrived and they're all in this hall and they're all being processed, these people. But you could see a lovely city in the background. It's almost they have to go through that bit in order to get to the city behind them. It looks very futuristic there. So again, write down as many nouns as you can. What can you see in each of these pictures, or just choose one of these pictures? I've got houses, chimneys, windows, there's dragon tails. Again, we've got some smoke, we've got clouds, lines of people, rows, the sky, there's a sign with lots of, with a different language written on it. So give yourself 2 minutes, off you go. Okay, and we are repeating the process. So now we are going to add in some adjectives, some similes if you like, some personifications, some metaphors if you like. I've got houses huddled together, so they've been personified. They're huddling together. They're really close, these houses, aren't they? Slender chimneys, quite a nice ENP there. Piercing the night sky. We've got windows like eyes remain shut tight. It's almost as though they're a bit frightened as well, those windows. But you can imagine the curtains being closed. It looks like they're shutting their eyes. Dragon tails snake round the buildings, squeezing the breath from them. So not only have the buildings been personified, but it's almost like this danger, whatever it is, squeezing the life out of these buildings. We've got thin, never-ending rows of people stretching out. It could be stretching out to magnificence beyond. It could be anything. Large, loud signs calling to the people below. Again, personification of that sign. It's calling to the people below them. So give yourself 5 minutes now. Come up with some really detailed EMPs. Can you think of any good similes? You're always very good at coming up with personification and metaphors. So get some of those down, please. Off you go. Okay, so we are going to do our final stage now. Now it's up to you. Are you going to choose one of these pictures to focus on? Will you be choosing one of these pictures to focus on? Have a little think whilst I'm reading my example for you. I went for the very first image of the cityscape, okay, with all those birds coming across. Our success criteria, we've got expanded noun phrases, figurative language, and some links in there. I didn't go over that in the initial bit because we know what they are now, don't we? So as I'm reading, have a little look. Can you spot where the success criteria is? And also, if you want to steal any ideas, feel free to jot those down as well. The bright white birds glided delicately across the sky as the city came alive. Plumes of thick smoke snaked through the air, stretching towards the clouds and disappearing into the atmosphere. On the city floor, thousands of tiny people scurried like ants to their pot-shaped houses, eagerly awaiting the magic of the evening. On the houses, window-like eyes began to close as a large street sign calls out to any onlookers, calling them deeper into the city lights. Okay, so where can we see our success criteria? We've got EMPs, we've got those bright white, we've got thick smoke, tiny people. Okay, we've got some figurative language. The sign is calling out to any onlookers. Calling them deeper into, I've repeated myself there. I might change that to drawing them deeper into the city lights. I might change that. We've got smoke is snaking through the air and stretching towards the clouds. People are like ants, scurrying like ants. Nice simile there. The magic of evening. Windows like eyes begin to close. You can imagine they're just sort of closing the curtains slowly. It's almost like the eyes are closing on these buildings. And finally, links. I've got a couple of links here. On the city floor, you could have next to the towering buildings. You could have anything like that, couldn't you? And then I've got on the houses. So some other links you could have. We could have, the towering buildings. You could have beyond the city light. Have anything, couldn't you? Okay. So I would like you to give yourself 10 to 15 minutes for this, please. I'd like a really decent setting description. Pause it on one of those images and, you know, really try and think, how can I describe this, make it nice, interesting for my reader? So yes, give that a go. Looking forward to reading them. Don't forget to send them in, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.